Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Pamela Bouchard, ATSSA's Membership Engagement Director. We're pleased to present today's virtual town hall titled Invest in America Act, an inside look at the highway bill. Please note that today's town hall is being recorded and that all participant lines will be muted during this broadcast. Today's presentation will be approximately 50 minutes and will include a specific question and answer period toward the end of the program. You may enter a question for our speakers at any time by simply typing in the Q&A area on your Zoom navigation bar. Thank you again for joining us. I will now turn it over to Stacy Tetschner, ATSSA's new President and CEO.
Thanks, Pamela, and thanks everyone for attending this is our third national town hall, I believe, since we started this program. And I know that it's easy to get very Zoom called out in these days, but these are some important topics to talk about, and we're very lucky to have Congressman Dan Lipinski being willing to talk to us about the Invest in America Act today. And a huge thanks to Nate Smith, ATSSA's Vice President of Government Relations, who is going to make this program, or who helped put this program together and is going to facilitate today's discussion. So we're committed, as always, to bringing you value and information that will help you in promoting safety within your business and growing your business that promotes safety as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nate Smith, and thanks again.
Great. Thanks, Stacy. I appreciate it. We're thrilled to be joined today by Congressman Dan Lipinski, the congressman who represents the Illinois' 3rd Congressional District in Congress, which is parts of Chicago, Cook County, and northern Will County. We're also joined by his fantastic staff, his legislative director, Alex, and his chief of staff, Brian, both of whom we've worked with for a long time. The congressman is known for hiring crack staff that are just fantastic over the years. And so we just have really appreciated the working relationship that we've had. Congressman Lipinski sits on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and serves as chairman of the Railroad Subcommittee. He is one of 3 authors of the Invest in America Act that was introduced a couple of weeks ago and is being marked up in the T&I committee tomorrow and maybe into Thursday and Friday and Saturday and whenever it goes till. Hopefully not too long. And so we're thrilled to have him with us to talk a little bit about the details of the bill and what that process looks like in the weeks and potentially months ahead. So the congressman, in addition to serving on the T&I committee, has been the safety leader in Congress. He has been ATSSA's champion for years and has a very great knowledge of the Highway Safety Improvement Program, obviously the program that funds at the federal level roadway safety infrastructure projects. And so with that, I will turn it over to Congressman Dan Lipinski.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Stacy and Pamela. It's good to be with you today. I have had a great relationship with ATSSA for a number of years right now, and with Nate, we're incredibly busy right now preparing for the markup, which, as Nate said, starts tomorrow, and we don't know when it'll end. But because of my relationship with Nate, and he was interested in wanting me to do this, I wanted to make sure that I made the time this afternoon to be here with you. I'm experimenting with different ways of doing these meetings now with the headphones, so trying to get ready for the extended markup tomorrow. As Nate said, the Invest in America Act is going to be marked up in the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee tomorrow, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern. It's going to be a very, very long markup, but this is a really innovative bill, makes a robust funding commitment investment for our transportation infrastructure, surface transportation. So it reauthorizes the federal surface transportation programs for 5 years, so fiscal 2021 through 2025. The fiscal year starts October 1st, and we need to have a new bill passed by October 1st. The policy changes, and this is something important to remember, the policy changes do not take place until the second year of the bill, because the changes being made because of COVID, it just made things a little bit easier, we thought, for the funding to, or the policy changes to begin in the second year. But there's $494 billion in highway, transit, and rail investments in this bill. $411 billion on the highway side. It's about a 46% increase over the current funding from the FAST Act from 5 years ago. So yeah, 46%, very, very significant. We are still waiting on Ways and Means Committee. We have a commitment that the money will be transferred into the Highway Trust Fund. There is nothing that I have heard right now that is planned in terms of a pay for, but it's intended to be a stimulus bill right now as we are, working to recover the economy from the COVID-19 crisis. And I'm sure many of you have seen that the White House now is saying that they are going to come out with a $1 trillion infrastructure plan. No more specific word on when that's going to come out, but that's a really good sign to me that there is momentum now growing to do a highway reauthorization, surface transportation reauthorization bill this year and to get it done. So we're waiting to see tomorrow. We think that the Republicans, if there's any word out of the White House of the direction that they want to go, I don't know if that's going to show up in any Republican amendments during committee markup, but we'll see. We'll see what happens there. The Chairman DeFazio has a late afternoon plane flight on Thursday. I think he's being very optimistic that he's going to get out in that by that time. It's going to be a very interesting hearing because it's going to be done remotely. There will be a few members in the committee hearing room. Most members will be remote. I'll be sitting in the same place tomorrow as I am now. So it's going to make this a little bit more difficult. And as of now, I think we're getting close to 200 amendments, and there'll be more amendments coming in. But the expectation is this bill will pass out of committee by the end of the week. And on July 1st and 2nd, it will be on the House floor. It will be packaged together with some other infrastructure. That has not been determined what exactly it's going to be. Most likely, rural broadband will be part of that. That's something that the White House has also mentioned that is going to be in their package. Maybe water and sewer infrastructure may also be in there, but we will see what exactly winds up being in that. But July 1st and 2nd, it'll be on the plan is to have it on the House floor and to pass it before the 4th of July. So first, the highway provisions. $319 billion for highways, for the highway program. $28 billion in nationwide funding to repair and replace essential bridges and to strengthen the interstate highway system. $5.3 billion for highway safety programs under the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. So $5.3 billion for safety programs under NHTSA. HTIP will increase from 2.6 to $3 billion. So that's an increase, a significant increase for HTIP. Increases the focus on safety by requiring states with the highest level of pedestrian and bike fatality to set aside funds to address these safety needs. There's a special emphasis in the bill on safety for bike and ped. Something near and dear to my heart as a cyclist. I'm very happy to see that. So that's good to see. FHWA is going to be required to adopt context-sensitive design principles, provide for complete streets in urban areas, and ensure the safety of all road users. A couple other things. There's a new gridlock reduction grant program to help large urbanized areas reduce congestion. And there is a $9 billion projects of regional national significance grant program to fund transformative transit, highway transit rail major projects. I think probably at the beginning I should have mentioned that I think one of the reasons I've been a big champion for highway safety, besides Nate, is that I'm an engineer. So I understand that you need to design for safety and how critical that is. So I still remember it was about a dozen years ago when I made my first visit to an ATSSA member, and you know, that was that started this this long relationship that we've had. But I understand how critical safety is, and what, you know, a lot of things that you need to do to make sure that safety is designed into our road systems. I spent one summer, even though I was a mechanical engineer, I spent one summer working for a engineering company out on a road construction project in the Chicago area, which I was 19 years old, and I was getting up to be at the job site at 6 a.m., which I didn't particularly appreciate, but it did also give me some practical experience to teach me about road safety and what all goes into that. I know it's not as much of a interest to all of you, but just briefly on transit, there's a 57% increase in formula funding for transit agencies. Rail, which is my, as chair of the rail subcommittee, I largely wrote the rail title of the bill. There's a large investment in rail, about $60 billion over 5 years, which is a significant, very significant increase over the FAST Act. It puts a lot of that money into Amtrak, but also into commuter rail, which is something that I know is very important in my area. And it also establishes the first program to specifically fund grade separations. It's a big issue in the Chicago area with all the railroad crossings that we have, and it's becoming a bigger issue all around the country because of the longer trains that we're now seeing. So the $2.5 billion grant program for grade separations. And with that, I think I will end my. I'm looking to see what else I have here, but I think I'm going to end it there. I don't know if Alex has anything that he wants to add specifically on the safety portion. So Alex, are you?
Pamela, can you make Alex eligible to speak? We'll get there in just a second. He's coming up.
Hey, Nate, can you hear me?
Yes, Alex.
There we go. Thanks, Congressman. Just a couple of things I think ATSSA members might be interested in. It does make Vision Zero planning an eligible expense. So I know, you know, a lot of, in developing those plans as well. So I know a lot of cities are working to develop Vision Zero, popular movement adopted off of, I believe, what Sweden did. So we make that eligible. I think something, you know, ATSSA is also highlighted for their members, but there's also a, you know, focus on high-risk rural roads. You know, that's where the most casualties actually happen per capita. So that's a good focus in the bill. It formally reestablishes the Safe Routes to School program instead of sort of, you know, making that a subset of TAP. It sort of, you know, reestablishes a separate one, which I think is good. And then the last thing is, you know, this is going back to the Congressman's point about how, as an engineer, it's important to design roadways for safety. You know, right now, you know, the 85% threshold in terms of speed is how most roads are designed. You know, 85% of what, you know, what the percentile of how fast cars are traveling is sort of the way we design roadways. it's a really revolutionary approach that the committee takes in this bill by, not only focusing on context-sensitive design, but also, adopting what they call a safe systems approach that basically says, let's look at the users of the road rather than, how fast cars are going, and to really focus on safety for all users. So as the congressman said, given the record high in pedestrian and cyclist deaths, we're making progress on the roadway or for cars, but not necessarily on the cyclists and pedestrians. I think the committee's done a really good job of focusing on reducing those deaths and trying to make progress and reverse the unfortunate trends we've seen the last couple of years. So I think the congressman's spot on when he says that there's a huge focus within HTIP but across the bill about really diving in and trying to focus on safety for vulnerable users, especially pedestrians and cyclists. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Alex. Appreciate that. So you commented about the Ways and Means Committee having a I guess a promise or a understanding that they will infuse the Highway Trust Fund to be able to fund a bill of this size. That's always been one of the sticking points of getting something done. The policies is the easy, even if people disagree over policy. It's colleagues that there would be an interest in either increasing user fees or finding some solution for the Highway Trust Fund.
Well, again, this has been a frustration of mine for many, many years, is the unwillingness, and I'll be blunt about it, for members of Congress to have the courage to vote to raise revenue somewhere to put into the Highway Trust Fund. And it's just been a lack of political will to do it. And I won't go on too long about this, but I remember vividly back in 2009 when we went through this, and we thought that would have been the easier time to do it when President Obama had just gotten in office. And I always remember the late Jim Oberstar, who was a great chairman of this committee, had put forward the raising the gas tax, and the White House shot that down, and the White House basically shot down any way of raising that revenue. Since that time, we've come no closer. I have said that I want to get this bill done. We should fix the Highway Trust Fund, but if we do it in some other way, I'm certainly willing to go along with that, because we need this bill. I'm not happy about it, but I remember back in February of this year, I said, people were asking me, you really think that there's going to be a chance that there can really be a 5-year reauthorization bill done this year? And I said, well, I have not been optimistic about it recently, but maybe it will be part of if this COVID crisis winds up being big, and it wound up being even bigger than I think any of us expected at the time, maybe there's going to be a desire to do this as a stimulus bill. And that seems to be where we are at now. I'm very happy. I'm much more optimistic today than I was yesterday, because if the White House is talking about doing infrastructure as a stimulus bill, I think that there's an appetite to do that. So I go back to your question. Right now, I don't see the political will to raise the revenue. I think we should do it. I would support any way of doing that. But right now, it looks like we could get this bill done this year if we keep going down this path. And the next few weeks will be very telling. See what the administration comes out with, and we could get this 5-year reauthorization done as a stimulus and pay for it as emergency funding.
You also commented, both you and Alex commented about HTIP, the Highway Safety Improvement Program. The funding levels are great. It's been a long time policy objective of ATSSA to increase those funding levels to up and above over $3 billion, which this bill does, which is fantastic. One of the challenges with this legislation is that the bill would reinstate a state's ability to push some of that money out to non-infrastructure safety projects. And I know that's something that you and we have worked on together in the past. So do you get a sense that the committee is interested in working with industry as this process moves forward on some of these types of issues?
Well, it does still, it does allow for that ability to flex 10% of HTIP for other specified safety projects. So it's still going to be used for safety purposes, but I know how important HTIP is. And I think as we move forward, look, this bill is it's very important what's in this bill. But this bill, when we get to a final product, the final product will be different. There will certainly be changes to it. You know, let me be honest. This bill was written by the Democrats in the committee without Republican input. There are a number of reasons for that. Republicans, we've heard all along, though, if this is really going to move, and I think it depends on the White House. And if the White House really wants to move, there's going to be a bill come out of the there's a highway bill in the Senate, not a rail or transit bill. So they have the highway portion covered. But there's still going to have to be a lot of negotiation on this bill. So, I'm going to continue to work on making sure that HTIP is funded at least at the $3 billion level, and the ability to flex the money out of there to other safety programs is something that that's not the. I understand the importance of these other safety programs, but again, I go back as an engineer. I understand that you need to engineer, design, and build these systems to be safe. It's not just the, it's just not working with other ways of creating safety, which are good, but you always have to do what needs to be done with the infrastructure.
Great, and we appreciate that. There's one last question on funding before we switch over to a quick question on connected automated vehicles. Is there serious conversations about eventually moving away from taxes on gasoline and diesel and towards more of a vehicle miles traveled system or other system? Are those serious conversations happening on the committee?
Well, we've been talking for a decade now about moving to VMT, and there has not been nearly as much progress as we all thought there was going to be. It's just one of those issues that's been a sticking point. But I think it's largely based on not wanting to be seen as a new tax. But I think people who are really considering this, thinking about this, certainly the policy experts and those of us in Congress who really understand what is happening in the move to more electric vehicles, some other alternative powered vehicles, that we're going to need to move to VMT. And there's more money for pilot programs for states to do VMT in this bill, and I think that the time's still coming. It's not going to be in this bill, but it has to happen. But we have just not moved as quickly as most thought we would move on it.
So interestingly, and this is a little background information for our members who are listening in, that connected automated vehicles obviously is a hot topic, broadly speaking, and a hot topic within our industry, especially from the vehicle to infrastructure piece of that conversation. Interestingly, though, by and large, connected automated vehicle policies don't come out of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, but rather a different committee in Congress. That being said, I know, Congressman, that you have an interest in this in general, especially from your perch on the Science Committee in Congress. Do you get a sense that in a broad infrastructure package that the majority is going to be putting together in early July, that there'll be a focus on connected and automated vehicle technology, or is that going to be left for a later date and a later bill?
I don't think that, much to my chagrin, I don't think we're going to do a lot on connected in autonomous vehicles in this bill. There's some more in there there's some money that goes in that direction for more research. Again, there's the safety aspects of that need to be considered. What I got into the FAST Act in terms of a university transportation center focused on these vehicles is again in this bill. Unfortunately, the politics of this issue have really hamstrung Congress. I've spent a tremendous amount of time working on this issue, but we've gotten to a point where we just have political issues involved in terms of, I'll just say there are concerns about about jobs being lost. And look, we need to move forward, and I'm going to keep pushing that Congress really lays out the groundwork for these connected and autonomous vehicles. And but it's right now it's unfortunately been tied up with political questions about what that's going to mean for some jobs. And while I can appreciate that on one level, we need just to make sure that we continue to move forward on and not slow down the progress. It's bad for our country. I think if the United States sort of just drags its feet, it's going to move all this out of the country, offshore, and it's a safety issue.
Well, no, that's an area that we're really interested in working with you and your team on. About a year and a half ago or so, we started adding traffic signals and manufacturers and contractors to our membership. And so that's an area that is highly focused on the future of transportation technology. And so that's in addition to our pavement marking world and our traffic signs world and others. So it's definitely an area of interest of ours as that process moves forward.
Well, I always remember, like I said, I've done a lot of work in this area. I've done a number of roundtables on this, and I will always remember, even with all the technology involved and in talking about the technology in the infrastructure, how important that will be moving forward. The number one most important thing is having good striping on the pavement. That's the number one thing for autonomous vehicles, is to have that. And so that's something that always sticks out in my mind, and something I'm always very conscious of as I drive down the road sometimes, and I think about it, and I think about where we don't have the markings, and I think something as simple as that is just extremely important, and not that expensive, but we got to do that right. Something as simple as that to get this technology out there more on the road.
The great thing about that example is it helps not only connected automated vehicles see the road, but it helps you and me and the rest of the drivers see the road better too. So it's a win for the traditional human driver and a win for the connected automated vehicle. There is a question, we've got a question, and Alex might be the best to answer this perhaps, but a question of the funding that's going to be going towards bridges, is that really focused on rural and local bridges, or interstate bridges a part of that as well? That's in the Invest Act.
Do you want me to handle that one, or?
Yes.
So my understanding is it's sort of a combination of both. It's really focused. It's really directing the state DOTs for bridges that are not in a state of good repair. So basically structurally deficient. It tells the state DOTs to sort of prioritize the funding to get to replace those. I believe the changes they made in the FAST Act to sort of include more off national highway system bridges, in federal eligibility to be replaced. I believe that is carried in here. So it's less about the type of bridge, or not the type of bridge, where the bridge is located, and more just the condition of it. And so, this would sort of direct state DOTs to prioritize replacing the bridges in bad condition, whether it's on the interstate, just the national highway system, or some of those roads off the NHS, but, still qualified for federal funding in the past.
Great, thank you. So of the 200 plus amendments and perhaps more rolling in as we speak, I imagine there's a mix of, in your opinion, good, bad, ugly. Do you have a sense overall of what those look like in terms of that they would be helpful to the bill or hurtful to the bill, or is it just a real mixed bag?
Well, let me first say that I was up looking at the questions. I guess I don't have to, because Nate's doing a good job of that. I was looking at the questions that were being put in here, but there's one other one I was going to certainly stood out. But let me answer this one. So there was an amendment in the nature of a substitute. So this bill was introduced 2 weeks ago to give plenty of time. This is the longest, in my 16 years in Congress, this is the longest ahead of markup that a surface transportation reauthorization bill has been put out there. It has been made public. So there were amendments that were offered, that were filed, that were included in a amendment in nature of a substitute that was put out on Monday. So it's essentially a new bill, and some amendments were included in there, which I think were helpful. There are going to be more amendments. Some of the 200 or so amendments, I just heard before I got on here that there's going to be 40 or 50 of those that are going to be included in the bill. Just was, agreed upon that these will make the bill better. We have not seen that many Republican amendments yet. So that's going to be, there's a couple of Republicans who have offered amendments, have filed amendments so far. We expect there's going to be a lot more. The amendments that have been filed so far have been more of what I would expect. They were just going after things like transit funding and the like. As I said earlier, I'm most interested in, because we now hear rumors that there's going to be a Republican bill that's put forward. I'm very interested in what that may look like. I find it hard to believe that's going to happen, but maybe it will. But that would give us, I hope there is, because that would give us a good sense then of where we may be able to come to some agreement when we eventually get to a final bill, which hopefully will get done this year.
Great, and I want to be cognizant of your time. I know, as at the outset, you mentioned that you are obviously slammed today, leading up to the next, month and a half of markups that we have coming up. But I do appreciate your willingness to sit down and chat with our members today, and walk through some of the policy provisions that are focused on safety and on funding, and on the future of transportation. So I really do appreciate you and your team's willingness to chat with us.
Certainly, and I just want one other thing, because I was looking at the questions as you said. So it's certainly the one from Stephen Elmer's. It's just tragic to what happened to your daughter, and yeah, I'm happy to work with Senator Van Hollen on that as we move forward. So I just want to let Stephen know that I saw that, and thank you for bringing that to my attention. But yeah, I thank you. We'll keep working together, and as I said, so much more optimistic today than I was 24 hours ago that we're going to get something done this year, get a 5-year reauthorization done. There's still a lot more work to do. This is a very important step, but obviously there's going to have to be more, much more compromise, and we'll keep working together. Happy to work with you, Nate, and everyone there at ATSSA, and this is going to be hopefully a successful, by the end of the year, a successful process. We get this done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to be with you today.
Thanks again. Appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Take care.
All right, well, thank you all for joining us today. This concludes our town hall. We will have a recording posted on our website later in the week, and you'll need your member information to log in. It will be hosted on the members only side of the website. Thank you again, and have a great day.